What is a zoning certificate? This is another question that I hear often from my clients. In the last video, we talked about, can we build? Hi, my name is Sam. I'm the senior designer at ISD Architects. And in this video, we will talk about the zoning certificate. What is the zoning certificate and why is it important to have an approval for zoning certificate prior to applying for a building permit. Now let's go back to the whiteboard in order for me to explain the zoning certificate. Now, the zoning certificate is a preliminary review of the submitted plans. So we have a process of getting the building permit approved, let's say, until we have our building built. I'm just assuming a generic building. So what is the first step? It is this one, the zoning certificate. And I'm going to write zoning certificate here. And we said before in the previous video, in order to know if you can build or you cannot build, it all depends on a stage prior to that and sort of supporting to that phase, which is the zoning certificate, which is called zoning information or study. So we need to do a zoning study here in order for us to apply for zoning certificate. If you have no clue about what zoning regulations and bylaws pertaining to your property, that when you apply for a zoning certificate, you'll run into trouble because you have no clue. You don't know anything about the setbacks, you don't know anything about the GFI, you don't know anything about the FSI, you don't know anything about LC, lot coverage, you don't know anything about building heights, and other minor things that are crucial. I mean, when I say minor, I mean minor in the sense that knowing them is not a big deal. It's just that they play a role and they can hinder the whole process here. So here is the building permit. So once you get approved, then the building permit and then construction. Of course, this is a very generic kind of process. But we always start with a zoning certificate. So what do we need in the zoning certificate at this stage? We need general information to know what it is. You need detailed review of proposal. So the city people or the examiners, zoning examiners, would like to know, what are you thinking? What are the plans? What is your intention? And they don't have to be detailed. You need the drawings, and it has to be, those drawings should be sort of drawn properly with dimensions and with basic information. Also, you need to submit elevations or facades for the building. So let's say this is a north facade, this is probably east or west facade, and so on and so forth. You need to show the four, and if you're attached to another building, so let's say you're semi-detached here, then you don't have to show this one because you can't and it's not shown. So you need three. If you're attached to or semi-detached from two different sides, then you need two, and so on and so forth. There would be some forms that you have to fill in. In addition to the drawings themselves, you need a little bit of specification so that the examiner knows without asking. He or she sees everything on the drawing and there is a fee associated with the building permit. Sorry, with the zoning certificate. Now, the zoning certificate is part of the building permit process. So when you pay money here, it's going to be credited towards the building permit. And this is nice. You know, this is fair, because if you pay $100 here and this costs $200, then you'd only be charged another $100 to review the building. Of course, I'm throwing out numbers. It will be more than that, obviously. But the zoning certificate is for the city, municipality, zoning examiners to say, okay, go ahead. Or they will send you a zoning notice. And that zoning notice, you say you're missing one. For example, here you built here and the setback is not enough. Or you have opened too many windows here to your neighbor, and that's not allowed. Or if you have glass here with your neighbor, I mean, this is your neighbor. This is you, this is your neighbor. If your neighbor has glass here, then there is a certain distance between this glass and your closest opening. They call it unprotected opening. So all of these issues will be discussed at this point, but not with a detail. If you show a window here, they would say, this window is too close. According to the zoning bylaw so-and-so, if the building is too high or more, exceeds the maximum height, then they would tell you that as well. If there's no setback, if the setback is, if you're breaching into the setback, if you're encroaching into the setback, then you would be told in the zoning notice. Now, what are the requirements for this zoning certificate? It would be a survey, and you need a survey from a surveyor. Now, this is a tricky part, because sometimes you have a survey in your for your property when you purchased it, and it could be very old. That doesn't matter as long as the major structure has not been altered dramatically. Some of the surveys would have trees. Some of the properties would have trees that do not show in an older survey, and that could be verified as well by your designer or architect, or by yourself, or you can just apply and see what happens. But the major structure has to be the same. The property lines. Let's say this is the property, and you have a structure here. The property lines have to be the same, and the boundary has to be the same. If there has been any contour alteration, it also has to show. I mean, this is not about only fulfilling the requirements at this stage. It is about the safety of your building, how you treat the stormwater within your property. If there is no proper way of draining out your property towards this street or towards a designated catch basins, then your property would be damaged in addition to the properties surrounding your properties. Then you might have some problems with the neighbors claiming that the water is coming now to their property, which is also a zoning issue tackled here. So what else do we need? We need floor plans of like the basement, main floor, second floor, third floor, typical floor if you're applying for a larger building. One important part of the zoning certificate application requirements is the site plan. Not this one, this is a perspective. The site plan would be this one with a lot of information that addresses all the zoning bylaws in the zoning bylaws of that particular municipality. And then you need elevations, as I mentioned, and you need cross sections to show heights, and to show in the elevations you show material. the zoning certificate is like the threshold that you have to cross in order to enter into the building permit stage. The fees here, you would be charged, normally it's 25% of the building permit fees, but as I said, it will be credited. Once you pass this stage, it will be credited towards the building permit. Then you won't lose your money. And that's basically how it goes. And the application could be done online to the municipality, or some municipalities would require hard copies. So you have to go with hard copies, certain sizes and certain scale. Everything has to be shown clearly. There should be no phone calls between you and the examiners. Everything should be read on the drawings. And this is what makes it a little bit tricky, but it's really easy. It's not a big deal. But before this, you have to review your zoning bylaws, and you have to have a grip on the zoning bylaws in order not to face a lot of zoning notes here, and then you run the risk of being rejected and starting from scratch, or your whole scheme of design is like out of line. So I hope you find this video useful. Feel free to comment, feel free to send me an email, or just comment below here, and then I will make sure to answer any questions you have about this process, because we have a lot of experience in zoning certificates. So our answer would be based on experience, not only theoretical knowledge. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.